I kicked my sister out of my wedding after what she did to my dress. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the day I had been planning for months. Everything was set, my dream dress, the venue, the guests. But then, my sister did something that completely changed everything. I've always had a complicated relationship with her, but this crossed a line I never thought she would. And in that moment, I had to make a choice. Do I let it slide, or do I stand my ground? I chose the latter, and it led to a decision I never thought I'd have to make. I kicked my sister out of my wedding. What happened next? Well, I can tell you, it wasn't pretty. The process of planning a wedding should have been one of the most exciting times of my life, but it turned into something more stressful than I ever expected. Of course, there were the usual challenges, trying to keep everything within budget, coordinating with vendors, figuring out the guest list, and, of course, the dress. I had dreamed of my wedding day for as long as I could remember, and my dress was always the centerpiece in that dream. I wanted something that felt timeless and elegant, yet modern, something that would make me feel like the best version of myself as I walked down the aisle. After trying on countless dresses, I finally found the one. It was everything I wanted, sleek with intricate lace details, and a long, flowing train that made me feel like a queen. I couldn't wait to show my sister. I thought she'd be just as excited as I was. I had always imagined us celebrating together during these big moments. But as we sat down for lunch that afternoon, I could feel the tension. She wasn't reacting the way I expected. "Wow, it's really something," she said flatly. There was no enthusiasm in her voice. "Isn't it a little much?" I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "This is the dress I've always dreamed of. It's perfect," she shrugged. "I guess if you'd like it, it's just not really what I thought you'd go for." I could tell she wasn't impressed, and it bothered me. But I brushed it off. It wasn't her wedding, it was mine. I was the one who had to love the dress, and I did. But that day would end up marking the beginning of something much bigger than just a dress that she didn't like. The night before the wedding, we had our rehearsal dinner. It was supposed to be a relaxed, fun evening with close family and friends getting ready for the big day. But I had a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, something I couldn't shake. My sister, Kate, was acting strange. She was quieter than usual, almost distant. Normally, she'd be right there with me, laughing and chatting with the guests. But tonight, she kept to herself. During the dinner, I noticed her eyeing my dress, again. It was hanging in the back room, all zipped up and ready for the morning. I assumed it was just curiosity, but there was something off about the way she was staring at it. I dismissed the thought. I had to focus on the big day ahead. But then, near the end of the night, when most people were chatting and enjoying dessert, Kate pulled me aside. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low. "About what?" I asked, feeling a bit confused. "I just think you should know something. I don't think your dress is as amazing as you think it is," she said, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "It's just a little too, extra. You don't need all that flair. You could have gone for something simpler, something more natural." My heart sank. It wasn't what I had expected to hear, especially the night before my wedding. "Kate, this isn't about what you think is simple or not. I love it, and I don't need anyone's approval. Why does it matter to you so much?" She sighed and looked away, almost like she didn't want to face me. "It's just, you're going to look like you're trying too hard, and I don't want people to judge you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Of all the things I expected to be worried about the night before my wedding, this wasn't one of them. She was questioning my choice, making it seem like I wasn't allowed to enjoy my own special day the way I wanted. "I'm wearing it because I love it, Kate. It's my choice. And honestly, I don't think I need to hear this from you tonight." She just nodded, but the tension was palpable. I could tell she didn't understand, and I didn't have the energy to explain it to her anymore. The night ended without much more conversation, but I could feel that something was brewing, something I couldn't quite place yet. The morning of the wedding arrived, and with it came a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. The house was buzzing with activity. My bridesmaids were getting ready, my parents were making sure everything was perfect, and I was in a quiet room, trying to collect my thoughts before the big moment. I tried to put the tension with Kate behind me, focusing instead on the day I had spent months preparing for. The dress was laid out, the venue was set, and everything was falling into place. My mom came in to check on me. "You ready, honey?" she asked, her smile warm and reassuring. I nodded, as ready as I'll ever be. I stepped into my dress, feeling the fabric flow around me. It was everything I had dreamed of, elegant, intricate, and perfect. The way it hugged my body and cascaded down in layers made me feel like the woman I had always wanted to be on this day. There was no turning back now. As I was getting my veil on, I noticed Kate quietly standing in the doorway, staring at me. Her expression was unreadable, and the silence stretched on longer than it should have. Finally, she spoke, but her words were chilling. "Are you sure you want to wear that?" I froze. "What do you mean?" I don't think it's you. It's too much. Everyone's going to be staring at you, and you'll be the center of attention for all the wrong reasons," Kate said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't place. I was stunned into silence for a moment. Her timing couldn't have been worse. "Kate, enough," I said, trying to keep calm. "I'm wearing it because I love it. I don't care if it's too much for you or anyone else. This is my day, and this is my choice." She didn't respond. She just turned and walked away without another word. I tried to shake off the conversation, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Was my sister really this upset about my choice of dress? I tried to ignore it. My wedding day was about love, not about petty disagreements over what I chose to wear. So I took a deep breath, finished getting ready, and made my way to the venue. But something inside me told me that this wasn't over, and I wasn't wrong. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Everything went as planned, the venue was breathtaking, the guests were all smiles, and the atmosphere was filled with love. As I walked down the aisle, I could feel every eye on me, and it felt magical. I knew the dress was a statement, and I was proud of it. I was the bride, the center of attention, and it felt perfect. For the first time that day, I could finally breathe. When I reached the altar, I saw my fiancé's face, his eyes filled with emotion. He whispered, "You look stunning," and my heart melted. In that moment, nothing else mattered. My family, my friends, the dress, it all faded into the background. All that mattered was that I was marrying the person I loved. But then, just as we were about to start the vows, I noticed something in the corner of my eye. It was Kate. She was standing in the back, watching us. At first, I didn't think much of it, but there was something about the way she stood there, arms crossed, that made my stomach drop. She wasn't smiling, and she wasn't engaged in the moment. It was like she was disconnected from everything happening around her. The ceremony continued, and I tried to focus on the vows and the joy of the moment, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I knew Kate had been distant and cold about my dress, but I didn't expect this kind of attitude at the wedding. Was she really going to act like this today, of all days? After the ceremony, we moved into the reception hall. I tried to ignore the tension, focusing instead on celebrating with my guests. But when I went to the restroom to freshen up before the dinner, I saw something that took my breath away. My wedding dress, the one I had spent months picking out, was torn. Not just a small tear, but a noticeable jagged rip along the train. My heart sank into my stomach as I stood there, staring at the damage. This wasn't something that could be fixed quickly, especially not with the kind of fabric my dress was made from. My thoughts immediately went to Kate. She was the only one who had been acting strange, and the only one who had ever shown any kind of disdain for the dress. I stepped out of the restroom, shaking, my hands cold. I walked directly to Kate, who was standing by the bar, chatting with a few guests. As soon as I approached, her face went pale. "What happened to my dress, Kate?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. "Why is it torn?" She tried to act casual, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. "What do you mean? I don't know. Maybe it got caught on something." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I know you did this." Her face reddened as she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She could see that I wasn't buying her excuse. "I didn't mean to," she began, but I interrupted her, the anger bubbling to the surface. "Did you think I wouldn't notice? You've been nothing but critical of my dress this entire time, and now I find it torn? I can't believe you do this to me on my wedding day." Kate stood there, silent, looking ashamed, but instead of apologizing or explaining herself, she just stood there, avoiding eye contact. "You need to leave," I said, my voice firm, cutting through the tension. "I can't do this anymore. You've crossed a line, and I can't have you here after what you did." Her eyes widened in shock. "Wait, what? Are you serious? Leave, now, I said, pointing to the door. The moment I told Kate to leave, the room fell silent. It was like the air was sucked out of the entire venue. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could hear the murmurs of confusion from the guests around us. But I didn't care. This wasn't just about a dress anymore. It was about respect, trust, and setting boundaries. Kate stood there, frozen. Her eyes were wide, but there was no apology, no attempt to explain. She opened her mouth to speak, but then closed it again, her face turning a mix of red and pale. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Yes, Kate, I am," I said firmly, my hands trembling with both rage and frustration. "You ruined my dress. You ruined this day. I don't care about your excuses anymore. You're done here." I turned away from her, my emotions running wild. I couldn't look at her anymore. Not like this. Not on the day that was supposed to be my happiest. I was angry, hurt, and completely betrayed. As I walked back to the reception area, the weight of everything hit me. I had just kicked my sister out of my wedding. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad dream. My mind was racing, and I couldn't process what had just happened. I had made the decision to stand up for myself, but in doing so, I had lost something. My sister was no longer part of this day, and it was a choice I had to live with. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I tried to enjoy the moment, to focus on my fiancé, my family, and our friends, but every time I looked around, I could feel the emptiness where Kate used to be. It was as if a shadow had been cast over the event. Her absence was loud, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was irreparably broken. Later that night, after most of the guests had left, I found a message from Kate on my phone. I hadn't wanted to talk to her earlier, but I saw that she had texted me, and my hands trembled as I opened it. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your day. I didn't know how to handle my feelings. I love you, and I can't believe I've messed this all up. Please don't let this be the end of us. Please." I stared at the message, my chest tightening. Part of me wanted to forgive her right then and there, but another part of me knew that this wasn't something I could easily move past. She had crossed a line, and the trust that had been broken was not so easily repaired. The days following the wedding were tough. I thought the hardest part would be dealing with the fallout from Kate's actions, but in reality, the hardest part was figuring out what to do next. I had confronted her, asked her to leave, and now there was a rift between us that felt impossible to bridge. Despite her apology, something in me was still reluctant to forgive her fully. She had hurt me, and worse, she had done it in a way that affected one of the most important days of my life. The day after the wedding, I called my mom. I knew this would be a tough conversation, but I had to hear her perspective. After all, Kate was family, and I knew this would affect our entire family dynamic. "Mom," I said when she answered the phone, my voice quiet, "I'm really struggling with what happened. I don't know if I can forgive Kate for what she did. I know she's my sister, but this was too much." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, my mom spoke, her voice soft but firm. "I understand, sweetheart. I've been thinking about this too. But I know Kate. She's always had a way of doing things that are not always well thought out. She's not malicious, but she has a tendency to act out when she's feeling insecure or threatened. I think deep down, she didn't mean to hurt you, but that doesn't make what she did right." I sighed, feeling the weight of my emotions. "I just don't know if I can ever trust her again. She knew how much this day meant to me, and yet she still chose to ruin it." "Trust is a hard thing to rebuild," Mom agreed. "But what I do know is that you're not wrong for being upset. You have every right to feel hurt, but don't let that hurt turn into bitterness. If you want to repair your relationship with her, it's going to take time, but it's your decision." After hanging up, I sat in silence for a while, thinking about what Mom had said. The truth was, I didn't want to let this ruin my relationship with Kate. I didn't want to look back on this wedding day years from now with resentment hanging over it. But I also knew that this was something that couldn't just be brushed under the rug. It was going to take work on both of our parts. I decided to reach out to Kate, not immediately, but when I felt ready. I knew I couldn't move forward if I was still holding on to the anger and disappointment. I needed to talk to her, and I needed to hear her out. But on my terms. A week had passed since the wedding, and the silence between Kate and me was deafening. I had received a couple of text messages from her, but I wasn't ready to engage. I was still processing everything and didn't know what to say. I couldn't just pretend like nothing happened, but at the same time, I didn't want to lose my sister. Eventually, I decided it was time for a face-to-face conversation. I called Kate and asked her if she could meet me for coffee. She agreed, and we set a time for the next day. I wasn't sure how it would go, but I knew I couldn't avoid this forever. The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop early, my nerves on edge. I kept thinking about everything that had transpired, the wedding, her behavior, the hurt I felt, and I wasn't sure how it would all come out. But I had to be honest, and I had to listen to her side too. When Kate arrived, she looked different. Her usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by a look of vulnerability. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, and she avoided making eye contact with me. "Hey," she said quietly as she sat down across from me. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." I nodded, unsure of what to say next. I wasn't sure I was ready to talk, but "I think we need to, Kate." She sighed, clearly struggling with her emotions. "I know. I've been thinking about what happened every day since the wedding, and I know I messed up. I was wrong to do what I did to you. I never should have acted like that, especially on your wedding day." "I can't just forget what happened, Kate," I said, my voice shaky. "You really hurt me. You knew how much that day meant to me, and you—" "I know," she interrupted, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to deal with it. I felt jealous and stupid. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I didn't want you to outshine me. I've always had issues with feeling like I'm not enough, and when I saw you in that dress, I just snapped. It wasn't fair, and I regret it." Her words were raw, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. But was it enough? Was an apology like that really enough to fix what had been broken? "I get that you were feeling insecure," I said, trying to stay calm. "But taking my dress and ruining it? That's not how you handle those feelings. I trusted you, and you crossed a line." Kate lowered her head, her face full of regret. "I know. I can't even explain why I did it. I wasn't thinking. I didn't know how to handle the jealousy. And instead of talking to you about it, I made a terrible decision. I just wanted to be seen, to feel important. But I see now that I was being selfish, and I hurt you in the process." The sincerity in her voice was hard to ignore, but my heart was still heavy. How could I forgive her so easily after what she had done? It wasn't just about the dress. It was the fact that she had let her jealousy and insecurity control her actions, and that had damaged our relationship. But at the same time, I knew that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about letting go of the anger, the bitterness, and moving forward. It wasn't going to happen overnight, but I realized that if I didn't start rebuilding the relationship now, I might lose her forever. "I don't know if I can forgive you right now, Kate," I said, my voice trembling. "But I want to try. I think we both need to work on this. It's going to take time." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you." In that moment, I saw the sister I had always loved, the one who had made a huge mistake but was genuinely remorseful. I still didn't know if everything could be fixed, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. The weeks that followed that coffee meeting were challenging, to say the least. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine just because we had talked. We both had a lot of work to do to rebuild our relationship, and it was clear that it wasn't going to happen overnight. Kate started reaching out more, sending me texts and even making small gestures to show that she was trying to make amends. She took more responsibility for what happened, and I began to see that she was genuinely working on herself. But even with all the effort, it was hard not to feel that lingering doubt. Every time I saw her, I couldn't help but remember the hurt she caused. I found myself questioning whether I was making the right choice by giving her another chance. I decided to talk to my fiancé about it. I knew he had been there through it all, supporting me when I needed it most, and I wanted his perspective on how to move forward. One night, after dinner, I turned to him, feeling a weight in my chest. "I don't know what to do about Kate," I admitted. "I'm trying to forgive her, but it's not easy. I keep thinking about how she ruined my wedding day and what it did to us." He looked at me with understanding eyes. "It's not easy, but I think you're doing the right thing by giving her a chance to prove herself. It's clear she's trying, and maybe that's all you can ask for right now. But you're allowed to take your time with this. Trust doesn't come back overnight." His words resonated with me. He was right. I didn't have to rush to forgive her. I didn't have to pretend like everything was fine, just because we had started talking again. The trust I once had for Kate had been broken, and it was going to take time to heal. I decided to give it the time it needed, without any expectations. It wasn't about forcing forgiveness or pretending like the past didn't happen. It was about allowing both of us to move forward at our own pace. A few months later, we met again. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but it was significant. We had both changed, grown, and started to rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. "I know we still have a long way to go," Kate said, her voice calm but hopeful. "But I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'll keep working on being the sister you deserve." In that moment, I felt something shift. The anger and resentment that had built up over the past few months were beginning to fade, replaced with the possibility of healing. There was still a lot of work to do, but we were both willing to put in the effort. I realized that this wasn't about perfection, it was about progress, and that was enough for me. Forgiveness is never easy, especially when trust has been broken. It takes time, patience, and a lot of courage to even think about rebuilding that trust. But it's possible. Relationships are messy, and they require work, whether it's a family member, a friend, or even a partner. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone who hurt you? How did you handle it? What steps did you take to heal? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you've been through something similar, don't hesitate to share your story. Sometimes talking about it can be the first step toward healing. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that delve into the complexities of life, family, and relationships. We're all in this journey together, learning and growing every day.